Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome to today's session. How are you doing? I pray that all is well with you and your families at this time. So a key aspect to understanding oneself and building oneself from the inside, strengthening oneself, is to understand one's own triggers, to understand the triggers that trigger one off. Those are the difficult moments because usually a trigger is not in your control. But if one has developed oneself and if one has assessed oneself from a very deep level, one will also understand one's weaknesses. And you would know then what is that triggers you off. What is that makes you angry? What is that makes you sad? What is that also empowers you? So triggers are not necessarily negative things. They can also have the opposite effect of being very positive. So positive triggers are also very much encouraged. So as we're going through this section where Krishna is making Arjuna understand the mechanics of sense enjoyment, the mechanics of enjoyment, and how by the impure mind one can be pulled down, or how by the pure mind which is connected to the spiritual platform, one can use that trigger then to lift oneself up to a higher level of consciousness.
A psychological trigger was done at the University of Arizona, where they basically got a scrub turkey in its natural habitat, and they started to play with the scrub turkey and see how it responded in very predictable ways. So the first thing that they did is they actually got access to a polecat. So they basically put the polecat in the environment with the scrub turkey that was nesting. So it had chicks in its nest. The polecat tried to attack the turkey's chicks, and the scrub turkey actually defended its nest and killed the polecat. Who would agree? That's predictable. One of the babies actually died. So they actually got the baby that had died, the little chick that had died. They took it to a taxidermist, got it completely stuffed, came back and put it back into the pen. And guess what the mother did when they put it back in the pen? Nothing. Didn't do anything, completely ignored it. And they thought, okay, fairly predictable. It's a dead toy, basically. So then they thought, well, let's see what happens if we actually put a sound device inside the stuffed chick that emanates the same frequency of chirp as all the other chicks, and then put that stuffed animal back into the environment. And guess what the scrub turkey did? She waddled over, started rolling over, and rolled the stuffed toy into her nest and started nesting it and trying to feed it. Now, what does that tell you? What social science discovered that when certain psychological triggers are activated, it actually will, in some cases, force a very predictable behavior where all other visual and sensory information is completely ignored. Now, they went one step further. They stuffed the polecat that had been killed in the first experiment, and then they stuffed the sound device inside the polecat that had been killed in the first experiment. So now they have a stuffed cat that's making a cheeping noise, and they put it in the habitat of the scrub turkey. And guess what the scrub turkey did? Rolled it over into her nest, squashing other babies, and then sat on it and tried to nest it and feed it. This basically means that there are certain psychological triggers that once activated are so powerful, not only does it force them to ignore other sensory information, it actually forces them to behave in ways that you would consider in many cases totally irrational. Who has seen people in certain situations when their buttons are pushed act completely irrational? Imagine the scrub turkey for a moment. What was the key trigger that determined the very predictable behavior in the scrub turkey? Cheep, cheep, cheep. The moment it heard the cheep, it literally activated something in its brain to behave in a very predictable way and ignore everything else.
So let's take a look at this today. Bhagavad Gita 2.60. Ya tato hyapi kaunteya purusasya vipaschitah indriyani pramatini haranti prasabham manaha. Translation: the senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. So Krishna is aware that this effort is not easy. It's never been easy. Self-assessment and self-development has never been easy. But the path is assured. If one goes on this path of inner development, there will only be success for one, because the other path leads one to oblivion. One never found fulfillment there in the first place. That is usually why one reads Bhagavad Gita in the first place, right? One is searching for something higher. One is searching for meaning. One is trying to understand what is going on. How do I make sense of life? From all the knowledge and education that I have from this material world, it's not giving me the tools to assess life. Therefore, that tells one that one assessment of life has only been on the external level. Now it's time to go internal, and you can't use that same level of knowledge, outside information, to try to develop oneself on the inside. That doesn't work. You need a whole another level of knowledge, another level of study, and that is what Bhagavad Gita is about. It's a manual for life. It's meant to help you understand yourself from the inside out. And therefore, as we are assessing these, many of these concepts are very deep, and some may be a little overwhelming. But if we see the Shreya, the long-term goal, try to understand from where you are. From where you are right now, try to assess to the best of your knowledge using the information that Krishna is giving here. Remember, Krishna is speaking from the absolute platform. So we're not only hearing from the supreme authority of that absolute platform, we are hearing from his pure devotee as well, Arjuna. So the combination of the both creates enlightenment, creates a movement within the mind and the heart, which will change one's pattern of thinking to a higher level of consciousness. That is the only adjustment, as simple as that is the only adjustment that is required. But it takes a lot of pre-practice to develop that into a lifestyle. So Krishna is saying, Arjun, as you're developing yourself, Arjun, as you're understanding yourself, know how the senses are strong, very strong. The other day we saw, the example was given of the serpent, of the snake, and how it's so, you saw that person just to control 3 snakes, how difficult it was. We have 5 snakes. Each of them are pulling in different directions, and we're trying to control all 5 at one time. For where we are, this is an impossibility. But we are taking shelter on the material platform. If we connect ourselves at the level of the soul to the spiritual transcendental platform, then these serpents become easily tamed. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, Arjun, I've been telling you about these senses. So I'm giving you a deep message here. Be careful of them. And in modern psychology, these are called triggers. These are called triggers, things that trigger off the mind. The mind, remember, is dealing with millions of desires from millions of lifetimes. And it's dealing with the impulses coming from the 5 senses all at once. So it's quite overwhelmed, it's quite bombarded, and it doesn't know how to handle it and which ones to choose. So therefore, if one is connected on a spiritual platform, one doesn't have to choose. One engages all of them. One doesn't have to choose. Whatever is filtering up through the mind, you just see, how can I use that in Krishna service? How can I use that in devotional service? How can I use that to better myself in the process of bhakti? So this is the simple devotional art of controlling one's mind, which will then control one's life. It's a simple process if you think about it. It seems so logical, so efficient. But like Krishna was saying to us, it doesn't click for everyone. There are some people who are less intelligent, who can't see this. And for them it takes a little longer. But for those who can see it, it's the most reasonable thing to do. Create your lifestyle, create your dream, and simply purify it and connect it with spiritual energy from the spiritual platform, and your life will be perfect. It's as simple as that, but as difficult as that. He goes on here. There are many learned sages, philosophers, and transcendentalists who try to conquer the senses, but in spite of their endeavors, even the greatest of them sometimes fall victim to material sense enjoyment due to the agitated mind. See, Krishna is giving the reason here. You see, Prabhupada is also giving the reason here. Why? Because they haven't addressed themselves at the level of the mind. They haven't connected the mind to a superior force or energy. They're dealing with the mind from the level that they are on. They're dealing with the mind from the level of the body. From the body, mind, and senses. They're trying to deal with it that way.
A trigger is the thing that causes you to start or stop doing something. It's the thing that brings the habit into your memory. If you remember the habit loop from yesterday, a habit is broken down into triggers, actions, and rewards. So a trigger is a thing that starts the process going over again. And triggers are really powerful because if you can remove the trigger from your mind and from your life, then the bad habit can often just disappear on its own. And so I'm going to start by telling a story about one of our earliest users who asked if Pavlok could help her with her severe depression. And I told her, look, we're not a medical device. I don't know if we can change neurotransmitter levels in the brain. But I also do believe that a lot of habits are a habit loop. A lot of depression is a negative habit loop. It's this negative thinking cycle. And so I told her for the next 5 days, whenever she caught herself in this depressive state, I asked her to zap herself, smile, and text me where she was. So on day 1, she caught herself at work. On day 2, she caught herself on her way to work. On day 3, she was reaching for the front door. Day 4, she was reaching for the front door. Day 5, front door. So I said, what is up with your front door? Well, it turns out that there was a flower vase that was sitting next to her front door. And when she was 16, she and her twin sister had a birthday party. A bunch of people showed up, and she had gotten 0 gifts. Her twin sister got every gift. And her twin sister said, here, have this flower vase. Well, this flower vase was sitting by her front door, and it was triggering these thoughts of nobody loves me, nobody cares, nobody wants me. And I told her to throw away the flower vase. And the next day, she texted me around 4 p.m. and said she had never felt or couldn't remember ever having felt that good that late in the day. And so we found from the story that number 1, the trigger is incredibly important, that it causes things to happen. And number 2, that you can replace triggers just by removing them, and it can often stop habits in their tracks. And lastly, number 3, we found that Pavlok was able to help people identify that trigger earlier on in the process, that the zap was causing a little bit more awareness towards what was causing the habit to occur in the first place. So today I wanted to talk about triggers because it's the first step in habits, and I wanted to bring that up because it's important that if you're trying to change any habit, you look for that trigger, that thing that is causing you to do the behavior, and you start to stop it in its tracks. If you have a habit you've been changing, can you think right now a little bit and tell me what is that trigger? What is the thing that's causing you to think? What is the thing that is the trigger?
They don't know the higher process of connecting the mind to the spiritual platform. In that way, the mind becomes enchanted. The mind gets enchanted with all the activities connected on the spiritual platform. And in that way, it's not agitated, but it's enchanted. It becomes very peaceful. It becomes relishable. It starts to enjoy because it's connecting now and experiencing an impulse, an energy which is not material. It's antimatter. This energy that's coming from the spiritual platform is antimatter. It's not a material energy. It's not a material source. This energy is spiritual. And therefore, as the mind connects and tunes with that, it actually then becomes controlled. But how? By engagement, not by restriction. All the other processes say control the mind by determination. Krishna is saying that also today. He's saying a man of determination, of discrimination. He's only using the strength of his willpower. And how strong is that? Oh, will it really last all the way? No, you need, therefore Krishna was saying, Param Drishtam Nivartate, Vishaya Vinivartante, Nirharasya Dehina, Rasovarja Rasopyasya, Param Drishtam Nivartate. That one has to develop a higher taste. That higher taste is coming from the spiritual platform. You remember, we just did that verse 2 days ago. So that taste is coming from the spiritual platform. That energy is different from material energy. So when the mind is in tune with that, it actually pacifies, it calms the mind, it pacifies the mind because it's allowing you to do and enjoy whatever you like on the material platform, but now you're relishing it through spiritualized senses, through spiritualized understanding. Therefore, nothing is being given up and everything is being enjoyed and relished on a deeper platform at the level of the soul. So just see which intelligent person won't accept this. But don't answer.
Triggers. 30 sales tools that you can use to control the mind of your prospects to motivate, influence, and persuade. Dramatically increase your ability to sell by learning how to control the mind of your prospect using 30 powerful psychological triggers to motivate, influence, and persuade. Discover the one secret very few sales professionals know, yet it doubled response to a simple offer. Discover how to make your prospects feel so guilty that they can't help but buy from you. Discover how to take an impossible situation and turn it around to your advantage through a simple sales technique.
Don't answer yet, because there's a lot of innocent people out there who don't know better, who are being misled and who don't understand how simple this process is and yet how difficult it is if it doesn't click. So choose wisely and see what's the best choice.